Good evening to Brazil. Good evening to the world. Good evening to everybody here and welcome. Welcome back to our series if you've been with us before, and welcome to you who are joining us for the first time. As a reminder, all of the videos that we've done here on this award series of videos are on YouTube, so you can watch them again. And I am really excited about today's topic, which will soon be presented by Dr. Carol Savarino. It's one of the ones that I've been most looking forward to because it really is the whole impetus for this entire series, really, which is growing a community of practice here, and one that is linked up with the world, really. Just to recap briefly, this series is called the Award Series, Academic Writing and Research Development. And this is a kind of a kickoff for a local initiative that we hope will become and will continue to have international links. So this local initiative is one that was dreamed up between me and Jennifer Euler of the RELO office here in Brazil. And I'll be introducing Jennifer in a second. And we know that there is a local interest in developing academic literacy practices and supporting academic writing in higher education through writing center-like initiatives. And so what we're going to be doing here very soon is we're going to be creating a network in the state of Paraná. I am a professor at the Universidade Federal do Paraná here in Curitiba, and I run the writing center here at the university called CAPA, represented here by my coffee mug. And we are going to be creating this network, but at the same time, we want to make this not just local, but connected to other states in Brazil, and that's already happening through this writing center group in Facebook, where we have people from all sorts of regions of Brazil, and connected to the world. And that's starting off with a lot of great voices that we're bringing in from the United States, thanks to the RELO office, thanks to Jennifer Euler. And one interesting thing I think is really cool about the Writing Center of Brazil Facebook page is that, as I said, we have lots of Brazilians in our group, but we have people from Mexico, we have people from Germany, we have people from India, we have people from Chile, we have people from all over the place, and we also have Americans. And we want to keep it that way. We want to keep growing, and that's why we have the book. That's why the group is called Writing Centers of Brazil, not Centros de Escrita do Brasil, because we want to be able to converse with the whole world. And today we're bringing in one very important voice from that writing center world, in Dr. Carol Savarino. But before I turn over the virtual mic over to her, I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer Euler of the RELO office, the Regional English Language Office of the U.S. Embassy and Consulates here in Brazil. Jennifer?
Thanks, Ron. I'm so proud to be here today and to see this project coming to life. I really like what you had to say about exchange, because I think it's at the heart of what we're doing at the U.S. Embassy and Consulates here in Brazil, is finding opportunities for Brazilians to exchange, so two-directional, exchange ideas and enrichen the North American, or more specifically, the perspective in the United States, but vice versa. And I think we're all wiser and better for it. And as you were speaking, I was thinking a little bit about our anniversary of a year ago when I was in Curitiba and we were exchanging ideas about this specific project. So the genesis goes back before that, but really it's been a project that's a long time coming. And it makes me very happy to see this community strengthening the idea of supporting academic writing and writing centers in Brazil. And so it's wonderful to have Dr. Carol Savarino with us today, and also this incredible lineup of speakers leading to this moment when we can talk about community, because that's the way that we can move forward. And I see so many possibilities for working with academic writing, publication, and writing centers in higher education here in Brazil. And so I want to just give a couple of comments. One is, we have lots of ways to work with you to help support your English language teaching and learning needs. Please don't hesitate to be in touch with the I have great branding today with the Regional English Language Office. We can explore other ways to support you or your institution as you think about starting a writing center. And I would like to specifically highlight an upcoming course, coincidentally, also from a university in Iowa, from Iowa State, on developing writing centers. It's a 5-week or 5-module massive open online course that will be offered in May. And I'm happy to put the information in the chat box of this particular webinar so that you can put it on your calendar and check it off if you want to continue exploring in another format ways to start writing centers to support academic writing. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you to the Federal University in Paraná, all of the state universities that are part of this project, and welcome our English language specialist, Dr. Carol Savarino. I look forward to learning from you and participating in this community. Have a great webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you again for all the great work that you've done. And I look forward to continue this conversation for a long time to come. And I want to turn it over to Dr. Carol Savarino, who many of you know very well already because she has been around the Writing Center community for quite a long time.
That's for sure.
As long as I have been in academia, really. And of course, she's the director at the Writing Center in the University of Iowa, where she is now. She told me that it's 70 degrees there at the moment, and to come out of the feet of snow that they've been in, and she looks quite relaxed and happy, partly because of that, and also because she told me that half the population is already getting vaccinated over there, and here we are in Brazil, still hoping to get vaccinated soon. And as much as I would love to be able to sit with you and chat in person, Carol, over this subject, I'm glad that we can bring you here and share what your insights and knowledge with the whole world.
Yep.
And this subject, as I said earlier, is one that is very dear and central to this whole initiative, which is how do we build a community of practice? I know you're going to bring your own insights from your own experience in your career. And I hope that people watching in the various parts of the world that they're watching this broadcast, especially here in Brazil, can reflect on, through Dr. Severino's presentation, what the relevance is for our own community of practice that we're trying to develop here, which will invariably be different from the communities of practice in the States, yet will surely have relevance. So with no further ado, thank you, Dr. Carol Savarino, for being here, and we really look forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me. And I'm really looking forward to finding out about what the Brazilian Writing Center context, and also in other countries, what their writing center contexts are like, because I don't want to just be emphasizing my own here. So I will share my screen, and I have a little PowerPoint. And as Ron said, let's see, let's do slideshow. And from the beginning, and as Ron said, my topic in this series is fostering writing center communities of practice, sharing ideas and building networks. And the presentation will cover how and why the writing center community networks, so why we share ideas and information, the kinds of ideas we share and in what formats, how to generate ideas for conference presentations. That's one form of networking. And it will involve some audience participation on your part. You'll brainstorm in the chat your passions, your topics, and your research questions. But first of all, what is a community of practice? It's a group with a shared passion for something they do, and that could be anything: fixing motorcycles, cooking, sculpting, and they learn how to do their activity better as they interact regularly. And this is a term coined by Etienne Wenger. And the key words here are passion and interaction. So for the chat, I was wondering how you in Brazil and across the world would describe our and your shared passion. What is it a passion for? So what motivates you in your center to do Writing Center work? So if you could articulate your passion in the chat, and remember, we're just brainstorming and there's no such thing as a correct answer or a correct Writing Center passion. So, and then, I guess Ron will tell me what's in the chat.
That's right, yeah. And while people are writing their answers, I'd like to kind of just contribute there from our perspective here, or my own perspective as the director of the Writing Center here at the Writing Center for the Universidade Federal do Paraná, UFPR's Writing Center, as a director. And, I can tell you what has driven me to stay in it all these years since 2016 and here, and what has motivated me. There's so many things, and I'm sure that a lot of people feel similarly, which is one, feeling that that what we do matters, that it really helps people, and that really just makes me feel great. And second of all, I love the interdisciplinarity of it all. We tend to otherwise in our academic nests kind of remain in our little bubbles, oftentimes not talking to even the neighbor in the office next door about what we're doing. And yet in the Writing Center, we deal with, especially with postgraduate students work, we get to see other people's work from other disciplines and learn about them and talk to them about it. And it's one of the relatively few instances that I can think of in which people actually talk about their work with other people from outside of their discipline. And I always find that fascinating. A few other people have commented now. So Abigail Villagra Mora, who is a Writing Center director in Puebla, Mexico, she says that her passion is the possibility to collaborate with talented and empowered students. And I can tell you that I've had some contact with her students, and they really are very talented. And I know she does a lot to empower them. Thais Deschamps is a tutor at the Writing Center here in Curitiba. And she says that her motivation as a tutor is to make writing pleasurable for writers. And that's interesting. Jennifer says that what motivates her to be involved in Writing Center work is all about access, empowering more people to have voices in science, education, and beyond. I also like the demystifying aspect of revealing the secrets to successful writing. It's exciting for language geeks like me. Anna Bacorni says, in my case, to help our academic community at the Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul, which is south of us here in Porto Alegre, to have their papers published in high impact international journals, and so to have an impact in getting people, helping them get published. Lola says, and she's a Writing Center tutor as well. She says, I believe for us at CAPA, it's about how the authors that come to us always arrive so apparently hopeless and leave with the biggest smile on their faces, having just found out that they are not alone.
Okay.
And Maria Valésia Silva da Silva, she runs a writing center in the Universidade de Caxias do Sul. And she says that to help our students to write more frequently and easily with our support motivates her, and to motivate them also to publish in international journals. And I think that's a common motivation here in Brazil, actually, for writing center work.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, those are great. Those are great descriptions of your passions, and they really help me understand what your centers are about and what you do. Ron asked me to describe my passion and what has sustained me over the years, and a lot of what I say here, you guys have already said and said it better. So, for me, it's all about relationships, especially, these holistic, interdisciplinary, multifaceted relationships, which, I would describe as reciprocal mutual enlightenment. That is, at the same time, it's personal, social, intellectual, cultural, and linguistic. So all facets that have fascinated me over the years. And it's all about professional privilege of access to these relationships. And like you were saying, the privilege of learning more about writers and writing in different fields is one of the few places this happens at the university. And also tutoring multilingual students and finding out how languages relate to one another, how they map on or don't map on to one another, I also find to be a privilege. So it's our common passions that make us want to interact with one another, either more formally at conferences, which we'll concentrate on today, webinars, symposia, workshops, meetings, and less formally, which often happens online in Facebook groups, forums, networks, and blogs. But, other reasons why we interact, why we gather, why we build networks, why we share. One of you just said it, I think it was Ron, to reduce isolation, to remember that we are not alone, that we are all resources for one another, but also to save time and avoid reinventing the wheel when we are solving problems or expanding our programs, expanding and improving our programs. We interact to refuel, to get re-energized and re-motivated, right? To get ideas for our centers and our tutoring practices. And also there is a tourism travel element. We interact to visit other institutions and places. And as you already said, we interact to get unstuck to get outside our silos and routine ways of thinking. We interact to connect, to make contacts with other like-minded people. And we interact at conferences to take a break. And we think of conferences as retreats, as mini vacations. And a colleague of mine said that an academic conference is like a vacation with the kids, which I really like. So I'm going to give examples of what I brought home to my writing center from meetings with other centers. From a 2002 International Writing Centers conference panel that was just fantastic. It blew me away. It's by the undergraduate University of Wisconsin Writing Fellows. And it convinced me that we could implement such a program at my university, because at the time, all our tutors were grad students and writing fellows who were attached to courses and work for professors in those courses are undergrads. So I contacted the University of Wisconsin, and they invited a colleague and me for a site visit. They introduced us to professors who work with fellows. We visited the fellows course. We met writing fellows, and we got, books and books of materials that they use. And we started our own writing fellows program the following year. And, now it's doubled in size and still going strong. The second example is at a meeting of the Big Ten Writing Centers directors. And this was in 2013. And actually the Big Ten is an athletics conference. And it actually is the Big 14. And it's large universities that compete against one another in football and basketball, but they also collaborate very heavily with one another in ways that I'll describe. But this example was when the University of Minnesota explained their dissertation camp. And again, I thought to myself, this is very doable. We can do this at our university. The dissertators really need motivation. They need to get back on track. They need to know that they're not alone. So the University of Minnesota sent us materials, gave us suggestions, and helped us set up our first dissertation summer camp in 2013, and it's been going strong. We had our first Zoom dissertation summer camp last year. So another thing that networking, especially in this athletics conference, enables is something called calibration, or comparing the statistics in programs at these 14 institutions to see who has it better in some areas and who has it worse in some areas. Of course, the people who have it worse in a lot of areas, which tends to be Iowa, the states of Iowa and Indiana for some reason, can wind up feeling bad, but it enables me and the people from Indiana to use this data, which is on a site with Excel sheets, to argue to administrators for calibration. If 10 of the other institutions in the Big Ten have better salaries for their tutors than Iowa tutors, then I argue on that basis for more funding for programs, more space, more staff, based on that data. So Ron wanted me to explain a bit about the International Writing Centers Association, which is composed, as you can see, from the list on the right of regionals, from C to shining C, except the C is white and doesn't exactly shine. My regional is the Midwest, okay? And the regionals, in turn, are composed of different state organizations. All right, so I've highlighted Iowa, which is my state, but I've also highlighted South Dakota because, as I said, we gather to visit places, right? And when the regional was in South Dakota, 14 of us got in a van and we got to see these South Dakota landmarks. And here's a picture of Mount Rushmore that we probably wouldn't otherwise have seen had we not driven 14 hours across the plain to South Dakota. And the state consortia are composed of institutions. Like mine has about 15 Iowa colleges and universities. So the state consortia have conferences, the regionals have conferences, the international has conferences. You don't have to go to all of them. It would be too expensive, as we'll see, to go to all of them. But it is my turn to host the Iowa Writing Centers Conference in 2002. 2022, sorry, to which you are all invited. And you don't have to be an Iowan, you don't have to be living in the region to go to the regional. They're open to everyone. And I'll post the call for proposals this fall. Okay, and there's a picture of Iowa City. And there's the Global Writing Center Network, which is composed of IWCA affiliates in the Middle East, North Africa, Canada, Europe, and Latin America. And Abby told me about the Red Mexicana de Centros de Escritura and a Caribbean network just starting. And then of course, Ron and Jen are starting a Brazilian network that will also reach out to other areas of the world. Now, I mentioned conference realities, and there's a reason why I pluralized realities with dollar signs, right? Face-to-face conferences can be expensive, and universities, especially in the time of COVID, are less willing to pay employees full expenses. I mean, the University of Iowa is not willing to pay any of our expenses. If I want conference monies, I need to teach another course, an additional course that gives you funds rather than salary, conference funds. But COVID has shown us that Zoom conferences are cheap and accessible to almost everyone with an internet connection. And regional and state conferences are much cheaper than international and national ones. There's no airfare, less travel and hotel, and easier to get accepted. At the state consortia, we accept everyone. If there's someone who submits a vague conference proposal, they are worked with until they submit a more specific one. The downside is that some universities require participation in international conferences or national conferences for promotion and raises. And you might ask, well, how can they require it if they don't fund it? And that would be a very good question that I don't know the answer to. So how to share? There are different kinds of conference presentations that vary by type of interaction. You've got roundtables, right? A little more spontaneous and relaxed than panels, and attendees can often go from table to table to discuss different topics with the presenters. You've got workshops that require audience participation in activities, organized activities. And you've got individual and panel presentations. Individual, you submit it on your own, and the conference hosts group you. Panel presentations, you submit with a team. And then you've got poster presentations where the interaction with the researcher, the person who put together the poster, would be personal, one-on-one, especially if it's face-to-face, where all the posters are lined up on easels, you walk through and you talk to all the researchers. Also, presentations vary by the main type of evidence employed, and most will combine types of evidence. So you've got practice-based ones, reflection-based, narrative, case study, which is my favorite form, conceptual or theoretical, and then you've got ones based on empirical research. So here are some examples of sharing. So these happen to be roundtable discussions at my regional, which the last one just happened 2 weeks ago. There's one on emotions. There's one on variables, space, gender, and writers' engagement. There's one on resources in the digital age. Do we go to the bookshelf and take out the dictionary, or do we go to dictionary.com? A more research-based one is this survey-based presentation, the impact of motivation on the effectiveness of writing centers. And in the summary or the abstract, they don't tell you the results. If you want the results of the survey, you've got to go to the presentation. Here's one that's practice-based. It's on phone tutoring, very simple idea. and very helpful in rural institutions that don't might not have a lot of connectivity for their student population. Here's one that's reflection-based. It's a panel presentation of undergrad tutors, all from the same institution. It's a community college. The theme of our regional was building community, so they are relating their presentation to the theme. The power of creating and sharing tutor philosophies. So it says a panel of tutors will explore the role one assignment, the tutoring philosophy, has played in their development. Tutors can respond to the questions this reflective assignment poses in any genre: artwork, essay, video, rap, etc. Panel members share project excerpts in addition to discussing their experiences. And I am really sorry I missed this one, which was, I'm sure, as entertaining with the multimodal philosophies as it was a learning experience. And I myself assign the tutoring philosophy in my writing fellows course. And I get fantastic, fantastic papers that really teach me a lot. So why should I share? Your ideas and experiences are valuable and worth hearing. Your colleagues can learn from them. By the same token, your colleagues' ideas and experiences are worth hearing, and you can learn from them. So here is a recommended process to generate ideas for conference proposals. You could come up with a number of topics. Don't censor yourself in a kind of brainstorming. And then choose what seems to be the most compelling and doable topic. Formulate and reformulate questions about it. Brainstorm and discuss your questions and your anticipated responses to them with others. And then read about how others have addressed your question. So, you know, to approach this, you could start with the conference theme, right? That might generate ideas. Community, diversity and inclusion is a very common conference theme for writing centers and other types of conferences. You can start with issues within your writing center practice. For example, what types of papers, in what stages, you know, draft or almost ready to submit, and in what fields are more challenging to help with and why? What kinds of writers in terms of profile, procrastinators or perfectionists, are more challenging to help and why? Or the hopeless, as you mentioned before, the hopeless writers. Or ideas from your reading, like policies you disagree with, the policy of not writing on students' drafts, or common writing center assumptions, like the assumption that our job is to make ourselves unnecessary to writers. You know, why would we want to do that? Why would we want to deprive ourselves of a great job, right? And one that I'm really interested in you know, internationalization of writing centers, which US writing center paradigms apply more and less and not at all to writing centers in Brazil and in your country. And writing center metaphors. For some reason, the writing center community loves metaphors, for better or for worse. And there's one metaphor that has been problematized many times. The medical metaphors of diagnosis, you know, like what's wrong with this writer, and then treatment. Okay, if such and such is with what's wrong with this writer, what is the treatment? How do we treat this writer? So, you know, you can probably hear problems with that metaphor right away here. So time for the chat again. If you could brainstorm and list topics, don't censor yourself or overthink. Use what others write, you know, what floats by in the chat to spark your own ideas. What could be a cool topic that you could share at a conference or a meeting?
Okay, great. So you're looking for what sort of topics would people like to perhaps share at a conference or at some point? So is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, while letting people take a few moments to write in their comments, there are a couple of interesting questions that came up here on other points that you raised, and one that struck me was you mentioned networking at conferences, and Thais wondered, do you see any qualitative difference between networking face-to-face versus in a virtual environment?
Well, I mean, this could be age related, but I definitely think if you're going to be networking, it's easier to do it face to face. It's just a little awkward on a Zoom screen. You know, I guess you'd have to get the person's email somehow and then email them later, because you can't, you know, call them out on the Zoom screen.
Yeah. My own thought on that is that some of the best networking I've ever done at conferences has been not necessarily when the event itself is happening, but it's the other odd moments when you're walking to get coffee and then you approach somebody to talk about something or somebody
On the elevator.
In the elevator, exactly. You know, maybe you're staying at the same hotel or something, and
or at dinner. At dinner,
you know? Absolutely.
Someday we'll be able to go out to dinner again, and you know, people conferences so they can see people who are their friends and colleagues at different universities, and they bring their students and tutors, and those tutors from the different institutions network with one another. You know, everyone brings their friends to dinner and you network with one another. I mean, there are some awkward things because some people might network in a way that seems aggressive, like, you know, handing you their card. Yeah. And although I'm sure I've handed someone my card too. You know, and it's all cultural, right? Like, you know, certainly culture influences the way people
yeah. And that's part of the fun too, I guess. The other question that you posed, Carol, was regarding what metaphors and what models might most or least apply to the Brazilian context, for example, of writing centers. And one of the thoughts was that perhaps the models that most apply, or that would most kind of fit with what the current Brazilian models of writing centers are the postgraduate, or what you would call the graduate writing support there. In part because they have a different kind of autonomy than the undergraduate writing support services in the North American context, which are often tied to a different kind of bureaucratic culture than we have here, with kind of funny, sometimes they're tied into a writing across the curriculum program, sometimes not. And the ones that run the writing center can be tied into a certain academic culture that's different from the one here. But on the other level, on the graduate writing support level, I think it's more similar. Now, some people have written about what sort of research questions they have, and Thais says that she'd like to research what kind of beliefs students have regarding what constitutes plagiarism versus what more experienced researchers' journals see as plagiarism.
That's a great topic. Fantastic. Yeah. I had a student dissertation on undergrad students' views of plagiarism compared to institutional plagiarism policies on websites. Yeah, it's a fantastic topic, and there's a good literature on it, but not enough. So definitely worth pursuing.
Candace Bond has asked how to find good mentors when writing centers vary so much by context. How does identity impact reviewing for and receiving reviews in writing center journals? And how do writing center directors experience their physical, social, academic, etc. spaces as embodied? And how does that impact their perceptions of labor and belonging? Fantastic questions.
Yeah, yeah. And lately, many people are thinking and writing about labor and writing center director identity. You know, Jackie Grutch McKinney and her colleagues, there are book length treatments of the subject. A very good essay in 2014 by Harry Denny and Ann Geller on the lives, the daily lives, the daily embodied lives of writing center directors. It's got ladybirds in the title. It's got a long title. And I had to, speaking of reviews, I had to review it when it was submitted. And I love that essay. It's, you know, it's narrative and it's got a lot of statistics too.
You mentioned that one of your favorite presentation types or research types to present is the case study. I was wondering if you wanted to elaborate on that, why that's one of your favorites.
Yeah. Well, when I first came to direct the Writing Center in 1990, so 30 years ago, the only program it had was something called an enrollment program. So if you wanted help with your writing, you had to enroll as if it were a course and come twice a week and see the same tutor all semester. And we still have that program, but we have, you know, like a normal appointment program too. But with the enrollment program, when you see a writer twice a week for 16 weeks, you really get to know them. And, you know, through IRB, if they give you permission, you can do a case study of them and their writing and their development. Or actually, it's kind of like a case study of your relationship with them. And, you know, in our writing center, many times the same student then will sign up for the same tutor the next semester and even the next semester. So there's a whole evolution and development. So in a lot of my writing, I have, I guess, used that program to develop case studies of writers, especially Chinese writers, because they were a big population. They have been a big population in my writing center and in my university.
Yeah, it's fascinating how I'm looking here in the chat and how you can see that there's so much. There's such a broad interest here, and how among people here in the chat, and so many different topics, and it seems to me that so much of what you've talked about and some of the research topics that you've mentioned, they should be investigated, even if they seem tired in another context, let's say in the United States. A lot of them haven't been looked at here in the Brazilian context.
Yeah, it would be new and news in the Brazilian context.
That's right, and Thais here in the chat box here said that she's really interested in looking at, for example, how Brazilian discourse, academic discourse, especially scientific discourse style, rhetoric, that rhetorical style is seen as legitimate or not, or if they feel that they have to conform to different rhetorical norms in order to fit the expectations of international English medium journals, and if they have to adjust what they would normally write to their own, their own rhetorical ways of constructing knowledge to conform to international norms.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
There's some sort of, I don't know, assumption that all scientists think and write alike, that there's some sort of universal scientific discourse. But no, it would of course be culturally and linguistically inflected, but to what extent? So yeah, that would be fascinating. And then the whole issue of conforming to get published and losing your voice in order to get published. I mean, that's a big thing. And there's some literature on it, but not from the Brazilian context.
Yeah. There's a lot. So anyway, I'll let you get on because there are a couple more things here, but I know that you have more to talk about.
Yeah, I would love to eventually see the topics, if we could save the chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So the next steps, and people have already asked questions, so we don't necessarily have to do this. The next steps when you have your topic is to get more specific and generate questions. And you want to make sure that the questions follow the Goldilocks principle. Is Goldilocks and the Three Bears, is it a nursery story in Latin America?
Yeah, everybody.
It is? Okay. So the Goldilocks principle, you don't want to make your research question too broad or too narrow. So too broad would be something like, are writing centers effective? You never get just too huge. Too narrow would be, why do we have so many appointments on Tuesday nights, right? This is not going to interest very many people outside of your own writing center. And just right would be something like, and this again is the American undergrad context, does the number of students' visits to the writing center correlate with their grades? And, for the Brazilian context, correlate with their number of publications. And like you said, in high impact journals. Or, does it correlate with the level of the journal? So, a big topic that I think would almost be culturally universal, since most academic writing is about reading, is how do we help writers write better about reading? Because it's a challenge. I mean, I've been doing it for 50 years and it's still a challenge. I'm not talking about helping others with their writing about reading. I'm talking about me writing about reading. How do we help writers decide which passages to summarize, quote, or paraphrase? Those are, complex judgment calls. And then for those of you working on publishable articles, how do we help writers make their review of the literature argue for the significance and timeliness of their study, the gap it fills, versus merely listing and summarizing sources? One of the big problems of dissertators is, I read source A, this is what it says, and then I read source B, and this is what it says, and it doesn't add up to anything. It's just a big long list. All it adds up to is, I did a lot of reading. Well, so what? You've got to show that there is reason for your study, right? That it fills a gap, just like we're saying about the Brazilian context. Any of these topics from the Brazilian context fills a gap, And then how do we help students doing too much textual borrowing, which is kind of a euphemism for plagiarism? learn how to, quote, use their own words, if there is such a thing like, you know, words belonging to someone. But, you know, how do we help people avoid plagiarism? Because it is a serious issue at every level. Okay, so I think we can skip the questions, since there are so many questions and topics still in the chat. But when you do write research questions, try to avoid yes or no questions. You want, you know, like the journalistic questions, the WH and how questions, or to what extent questions, like to what extent is your helpfulness with a project dependent on your disciplinary or topic knowledge about it, right? And you want to choose a question that you don't know the answer to now, but through limited reading and research, because you don't want to spend your life on this, right? You'd be able to arrive at possible answers. Okay, and then you want to read about your question in the Writing Center. Whoops, forgot the R, literature. And these are some of the publications which you probably already know about, and you don't have to confine yourself to the Writing Center literature. There's the second language writing literature. There's the composition literature. So here's a sample topic: the relationship between higher and lower order concerns in a draft. And a sample question: should higher order concerns come before lower order concerns in all tutorials, including those with multilingual writers? And what I'm going to show you is a draft of a conference proposal template. So, you know, some scholars, practitioners say blah about a certain topic. However, they seem to be overlooking of something important, fill in the blank. I argue that, and you know, then you state your argument and what the evidence is based on blah and blah. Maybe they are sources, articles, books, and based on my experiences, right, in the Writing Center with, you know, certain genres and certain types of writers. And then here's an example, right? Most tutoring manuals say that higher order concerns such as argument and organization must always be addressed in a tutorial before lower order concerns such as syntax and word choice. However, authors of these tutoring guides seem to be overlooking the fact that many students, researchers are not writing in their native language and need as much help with language as they do with argument and organization, especially grad students. They know what they want to argue. In this presentation, I argue that we need to weave lower order concerns into discussions of higher order concerns based on source and their idea, Blau and Hall on informed flexibility, and based on survey data from international students at my Writing Center that say that often language concerns are more important to them than argument or organization. So that would be a kind of proposal using that template. And then when your proposal has been accepted, yay, do even more research to answer your questions more fully. Usually at the proposal stage, you haven't answered it yet. And then when it gets accepted, then you really dig deep into it. So you read more, conduct interviews, design an online Qualtrics survey, use the data, you know, whatever data helps answer your question. Some WC Online, for example, generates a lot of data, you know, doesn't necessarily answer your research question, but it could help. You know, there's something called triangulation where you use various sources of data and they sort of confirm one another. And your answer is more convincing if your various sources of data back one another up Okay. All right. So the bottom line, like I said, we all serve as resources for one another. You have something to contribute. Your ideas and experiences are worthwhile. Others can learn from them. You can learn from others. By networking and presenting at conferences, you contribute to your own professional development and the development of your writing center at the same time. So that's all I have to share. So thank you for listening. And I'll stop sharing, but I still won't be able to see people, right?
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And everybody's loving everything that you're saying here. And one of the things that Heidi mentioned is that she loves the genre analysis of the moves and conference proposals. And there you see, I think, an interesting interface between higher and lower order concerns, because obviously on the one hand you're in that, using that structure, you have a kind of broad sort of they say, I say kind of discourse organization pattern, but you have an actual concrete instantiation of language that can help guide people. I think that a lot of Brazilians here, at least that I've come across, they like that kind of thing. They find that quite helpful.
Yeah, well, it was very good when I came across it in graduate school, because it demystified the whole process. People were talking before, with the passion, they have a passion to demystify writing and academic writing for students. Well, that's an example of demystifying it,
Yeah, that's
this
really
conference
great.
stuff is rocket science, it's all based on experience.
And I love that you bring that into that template. I actually took a picture of it because I thought it was a great example. Sorry, I've appropriated your content here on my phone. But
the PowerPoint is for everyone. I mean, anyone can have the PowerPoint.
But I love how you say, okay, well, they say this, however that, there's a gap there, and then I love that you bring the first person, singular pronoun I argue that, based on what I just said. And many Brazilians that I talk to, they're afraid to bring that in, the I. And as a matter of fact, it's a convention in Brazilian academic writing that they'll often say we, using the first person plural pronoun when they are the sole author, because it's been so conventionalized that they shouldn't bring themselves
Sure.
in. And then you, in that same sentence there in your template, you say, and based on my experiences with, which is a great way of saying, hey, your experience actually is, as long as you can base it on something, it's something that's valid, that should be brought in. And I love that. And also made me think about your points about the ideas that Brazilians could, and people or anybody else in this, from whatever country they're watching this broadcast in right now, is I think maybe if you're talking about writing center professionals, be they consultants or directors or whatever, on the periphery, and here I'm referring to the periphery as the center being sort of where writing centers were born in the United States and in North American context. If you're talking about sort of people on the periphery, how they may feel that the ideas that they bring are not legitimate, that they're not that valid, and so with that template, I think it helps bring in your own support for it's okay to bring in your own voice, and your experience do have validity, and it's something that you should, in fact, maybe should be one of the driving forces of your research is based in what you feel is important to you.
Yeah, I mean, and writing center conferences are very friendly and accessible and personal, and involve undergraduate tutors as well. So, it's not the Modern Language Association, which tends to be kind of, very prestigious and stiff and stuffy. It's a group of colleagues and friends. So everybody is using I, and if anything, the American Writing Center experience, which is based on undergrad peer tutors and to a large extent undergrad writing in general education courses, you could say that that's a lot less relevant than actual scientists writing for publication, right? I mean, a kid who writes a rhetoric paper, that paper is doing nothing in the world. It's going nowhere. Unless, it turns into an op-ed in a newspaper or something, or is used in a social justice organization. But research writing that is being published is truly real world writing, so.
Yeah. Well, on that topic, Siduri Christensen, who
no, I don't think so.
No, Siduri gave a.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, she, of course, she honored us with a talk here as well in the series. Yeah. And she asks, what advice do you have for novice researchers, MA students and such, when they are faced not only with learning the genre and moves of research, but finding a theoretical framework, etc. She says that I find that they do well with these rhetorical moves, but they struggle a little bit more with the theory. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I struggle with theoretical frameworks too. For these conferences, it's not a dissertation. You need a theoretical framework for a dissertation. You might need a theoretical framework for your research-based article. But for your Writing Center presentation, you don't need a theoretical framework yet. So so many presentations are based on Vygotsky, right? Vygotskyan zone of proximal development that, when you hear it in a presentation, you just want to sort of groan, oh my God, not again. So, some hearers, listeners are going to be more interested in theoretical frameworks than others, and in a sense, the presentation is kind of a first draft then of what can later maybe become a publication. And at that stage, I would worry about a theoretical framework.
Yeah, it's a very
activity theory. Is it zone of proximal development? Is it phenomenology? What is it?
Yeah, and now with online stuff, that's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into a lot of theoretical frameworks as well, because you bring in sometimes it's a hybrid of so many theoretical frameworks that exist.
Yeah.
The issue of authorial voice has come up as well here in the comments, and I think what you bring up about the higher order versus lower order concerns, and then about textual appropriation and how do you in writing about what you read, reading. that there, I can tell you, is something that we do struggle with a lot in the Brazilian Writing Center context, quite a bit. And what I find is that writing instructors who don't work in the Writing Center, they tend to, a lot of the professors, they tend to treat, basically they just kind of make a blanket statement that if you get caught plagiarizing, you know, you could face academic discipline, but don't talk about, okay, so first of all, what drives the people to want to plagiarize in the first place and what the alternatives are, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
and
not nuanced at all, and they don't give solutions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, that template example is great on that level as well, where you can say that's a good concrete example of, okay, here's how you can bring in, you know, authorial voice. This is you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can never do enough practice with paraphrasing.
Yeah, yeah, it's something that I see that is an issue for undergrad, masters, doctoral. I mean, I even the more seasoned researchers I've seen it as an issue.
And it varies by discipline. I mean, in engineering might put less emphasis on, quote, original words than the humanities. And in some scientific endeavors, there's only one way to say something. You know, there are only so many terms for photosynthesis. You can't paraphrase those terms. You've got to use the terms that people will understand, you know?
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that plagiarism is okay, but, you know, there's going to be less, quote, humanistic originality in scientific papers, because you've got to communicate with scientists using their same terms and not, you know, like vary. Use synonyms, they'll drive people crazy.
Yeah, and as you said, it can vary. It varies from discipline to discipline, and even within. I mean, I like to draw a comparison to help the people who work at our writing center to think about this. Think about our own, and actually one thing that's interesting about writing centers here in Brazil that I've come across, most of the people who work in them come from the humanities, specifically sort of linguistics, applied linguistics, literature, that area, rhetoric, and or the equivalent of rhetoric here. And so I say, look, you know, think about our own discipline. You know, you are interested in historical feminist literature. You are interested in corpus linguistics. You are interested in, and all of those people will have their own sort of journals that they publish in. And I don't read those other people's journals. I read whatever, English for specific purposes or English for English. I don't necessarily go ahead and read, you know, a journal on whatever, Shakespeare or something. There's kind of all these various subdivisions. And so within those subdivisions, there are also disciplinary conventions that are different. And so, I mean, it's the same thing with the other disciplines, not just our own, you know, subdivision of the humanities, which has its own subdivision. But the engineering, I mean, within engineering, you'll have mechanical engineering, and then within mechanical engineering, you'll have
civil
materials, and you'll have vibration, and you'll have all kinds of different things that, you know, polymers and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we have to work with models. We tell the graduate students to bring models of journal articles, and we help them dissect them and imitate the structure of those models. Because, you know, most of our tutors are also from English or other humanities or education or social sciences. And working with science students, we can't work with them without both of us studying models and dissecting them.
Yeah, and that's a really useful skill to have. Thais mentioned one last question I should bring up here. Oh, wait, a couple of things actually. First, Siduri kind of follows up on a point and says that this thing about plagiarizing is so true. My students and I took second language writing articles and traced the quotable quotes, and found that even respectable authors would plagiarize certain things or patch write.
Yeah.
So what we ask students is even more difficult than what we expect from published authors many times. And the lesson was to understand what counts as plagiarizing, where, and for whom. It was a fun exercise. And I mean, it's true that, you know, the more conventionalized the genre, the more formulaic it will tend to be anyway. So if you're writing poetry, it's going to be pretty much unconventionalized. If you're writing an essay, it could also be a little bit more conventionalized. But when you're writing for, you know, an IMRAD article for academic publication, it's going to be very highly conventionalized, and therefore the language will also reflect that. So it's, you know, I agree with 100% with what she said there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is somewhat worrisome. And I think it has to do with the careless way that academics, including myself, sometimes take notes. You know, you're not paraphrasing as you're taking notes, or you leave quotation marks out. You look at your notes and you're writing them up for an article for publication, and you know, you're inadvertently plagiarizing. And it's just from careless note taking.
I'd also like to bring in a really important point that Thais brings up. She's from Brazil, and she says that a difficulty that I see happening a lot in Brazil is that people come up with research questions first before being exposed enough to what conversations are going on in their area. That leads sometimes to misplaced questions, as in this question is not even asked because it goes against some fundamental principle. Sometimes to questions that may be valid, but which nobody's really interested in the first place. As a real example, we sometimes have authors who cannot find any journals to submit their articles to, since their articles or even their research is not catering to any niche in particular.
Yeah, yeah. And it's got to be filling a niche, and you've got to sort of immerse yourself in the field, you know, before you do any writing. You've got to see what other people have done and take notes, and, you know, find your space, find your niche, find your gap. So they just haven't done enough reading. But, you know, we have graduate students who do too much reading and they use it as an avoidance strategy. You know, read another book and read another book, and then another book comes out, and they never sit down and write.
The endless literature review. Yeah, well, I see that happening more in sort of, I see that happen in the States. I've seen it happen in Western Europe a lot too, where students can stay at a university doing their PhDs for 8 years or more.
Yeah, now they kick you out.
They kick you out, yeah, more. And here they definitely, especially at a public university, after 4 years, they'll say, okay, that's it, you're done. You know,
yeah.
So you're kind of forced to do it. But I think Thais's point kind of ties all the way back to the whole purpose of this whole talk today about community of practice, because I think therein lies a bit of a challenge, which is that let's say that you are a writing center person in Brazil or in Mexico or in Indonesia or wherever you are right now watching this. The bulk of the literature in writing center practice is going to be coming from probably from a context that's not your own. So you'll be doing a lot of reading about whatever topic you're interested in writing center practice, but coming from, you know, University of Iowa or coming from Penn State or wherever it may be. And so maybe the challenge is how do you do that reading and find your niche, you know, through that reading, but you know, through you know, a vicarious context, something that is not really new, but they're not reading about people who share a context which is very similar to your own, but people who are talking about a context that is, a writing center context, but and maybe just only loosely related to what you do. And so I'm just saying that as an interesting point, I think that ties back to the community of practice, is that
right.
It'll be a
The
while.
lack of research in a certain national context is the gap.
Yeah, and who knows, 100 years from now, there will be also just as much, research about writing center practice from a diversity of contexts outside, the United States. Not demeaning the work that's there.
I hope.
Yeah. To facilitate that. I just want to end on a kind of high note here, which is that you're talking to us, I think, on a very auspicious day, because it was on this day that things started to shut down here in Brazil a year ago, and I think pretty much there too. Similar.
Here too. I guess the 13th was my last normal day. Last normal work day. I came home because it was the day before spring break, and then nothing was the same from then on.
Yes, famous words of 2020.
Really weird.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily the high note of what I want to say, but I mean, just to kind of set the backdrop of it. I remember very clearly that my last sort of academic event that I attended, where there's people with badges on and stuff, was on this day a year ago. And then and I was at that meeting. I remember that I said, "This is too much. The World Health Organization has declared there's a global pandemic and so on. And tomorrow, when we have our team meeting at the Writing Center on our Friday meeting, I am going to go in and say, that's it. I don't care what the university officials say. We are not going to be open for the public because it's just too scary." And then I think it was on the Saturday that the university did finally come out and officially say, "No, we're shut down." But it was on that day, the 13th of March, that we shut down. And then, since then, we've been operating socially distanced from each other, just virtually. I have tutors that I've hired that I've never actually met. I feel like I've known them, in person. But I say all this because, getting back to the whole point of community of practice, the irony is that never in our history of the Writing Center have we felt so connected to others, other writing centers. And so, I mean, I've been in touch with many, many more directors of writing centers and other online events with writing centers in different parts of the world than I ever was before.
Right, you could just click and visit them. You don't have to get on a plane.
That's right. And so I think, ironically, the feeling that I have as being, from my own perspective as a writing center director here, being a part of a broader community of practice has been strengthened, as a result of the social distancing.
Sure, on all levels.
So I thank you for being a part of the strengthening of the community of practice that we've had here.
Yeah, well, it's been a pleasure. Yeah, and I would love to see those topics and questions in the chat.
Absolutely.
I can prepare for next Friday. Learn more about the Brazilian context and other contexts, and prepare for next Friday.
Yes, indeed.
It's we Americans that have to be educated about this.
I count myself in that too. And if I could just roll out some credits here at the end. Once again, thank you to Dr. Carol Savarino for sharing her insights today. And thank you to Jennifer Euler of the Rilo office in Brazil. As Carol just mentioned, those of you who are watching right now, or who will be watching this very soon, if you're not watching at this moment, from the State Universities of Paraná, Dr. Severino is going to be giving us a private workshop on Friday next week as part of the award program, and we'll be continuing this conversation with her then, which is absolutely fantastic. I also want to thank, in that light, the directors, especially Luis Mascarenhas of the Superintendência de Tecnologia e Ensino Superior, SETI Paraná, for supporting that initiative of the state, Paraná State Tutors. And yeah, this is to be continued. We will have a couple more talks before this award series ends. So stay tuned, watch this space. Thank you very much to everybody who's been with us today. And I look forward to keeping this community of practice going. Stay safe, everybody.
Thank you.